This is my 5th stop on my statewide tour on college affordability. This summer, I kicked off the tour with a meeting with all of the community college presidents when they were having their annual meeting, so that we could listen to them in kind of a one-stop about what they saw the needs of their students were and how we could help them, and what was happening to the colleges themselves in a way that to be able to control cost without shortchanging the education. Then from there, we went on to have meetings at UMBC, at Bowie State, and now I'm here in Western Maryland. So we were, and also I was at Hagerstown, so I'm working my way up to the mountain counties. For here, I wanted to be clear, along with Senator Cardin, that, you know, higher education and what the federal government should do, one size doesn't always fit all. And we are very determined to make sure that the needs of our students and our colleges located in our rural communities have the opportunity for being able to apply for grants, being able to apply for access to other help for federal education, be able to tell us the regulatory burden that they face. So we're here to listen and to learn. So in coming here to Western Maryland, we knew we wanted to come to the 3 turbo schools. Certainly our flagship university from the University of Maryland, Frostburg, as well as Allegany, and as well as our Garrett community colleges. But really, and I talk about Senator Cardin because we are the Team Maryland in the United States Senate. We've visited colleges together, and now we've split up to go to various parts of the state. We want to listen to the students. We want to listen to their hopes, their dreams, and their challenges. We want to listen to those in charge of running the great institutions of higher learning about what they say. We need to be on the side of the students, but where are we helping you be you, or where, through a regulatory burden, we should help you out more? And last but not at all least, where are the jobs and what do we need to get ready for our students? We know that a college degree improves job opportunities. It's critical for moving up the economic ladder. It increases lifetime earnings. But the benefits of higher education accrues not only to these young men and women, but I think it accrues to society as a whole. A better educated society is a great society. So with all of that, we're concerned about the rising personal debt that so many of these students have. Many students graduate loaning everywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 more. So I said I was here to listen. It's time for me to stop talking, but I want you to know we're here to be on your side and at your side, because we do believe in the American dream. We want you to be the best that you can be, and we want, when we talk about the mountain counties, to be able to say to the world that we're recruiting jobs or keeping jobs here. We've got the best trained workforce that one could be able to provide. So having said that, Madam President, what I'd like to hear is the names of the students, what their major is, kind of what their hopes are, and then what are the things that are working for them to achieve that dream, and what are the obstacles to achieving it. Who they are, what they're majoring in, what their hopes are, what's helping them, and what do they need more of a boost from. Does that sound like a good way to go?
That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
We're going to start then with our first student from Allegany College of Maryland. And this is Kelly Robertson. She's a second-year student majoring in political science, and she resides from Cumberland.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story today. A special thank you to my fellow students and colleagues. You make each day special. I share my story today, but I am mindful that each of you have a story. And to the support staff and wonderful educators and administration, the foundation, and especially to you, President Bambara, thank you for your continued dedication to the students, to our community, and to those non-traditional students like myself, that you have always found a place here at Allegany College of Maryland for those like me. And thank you, Senator Mikulski, for all your years in public service, your commitment to democracy, and the commitment to the state of Maryland, and certainly for organizing this dialogue today. We're fortunate to be represented in Washington by someone with such determination and resolve. I'm truly honored to be here today with you. Thank you. To speak about what obstacles I face. Well, I'm a mother. I'm a political science major, as she stated. I have endless responsibilities. I'm a mother of 4. So my days are long. I spend a lot of long days up at 6:30, getting to class, getting children here and there. But my college journey started 17 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And the world is a lot different now than it was then. And I've come through a lot of hardship and a lot of obstacles, including at one point losing our home. When the economy tanked in '08, and it took them a couple years to do it, but when we lost our home, it took till about 2010. My husband and I had to make some real decisions about what to do. He made the decision to go back to school. But he had a bill here at school because he didn't withdraw properly, tisk tisk. So we had a friend who actually stepped forward and paid his bill, paid his debt so that he could come back to school, and it was the kindest gesture a non-family member had ever made for us. And it was amazing. It really changed our lives. But here we are now, all these years later, and for him to go back to school, I worked full-time, and he went to nursing school here, and I worked, and he took out student loans, took out the maximum student loans so that we could survive. At that time, we took care of my disabled mother and 4 children. He was receiving scholarships, and at that point, we were broker than broke. So he qualified for Pell Grants, and we qualified for every government program you can imagine. Food stamps, Choice for Happiness. We went through all of it. But now here we are. He's working. He works night shift as a nurse at the hospital. And it's my turn. I get to go back to school after all these years of chipping away. I'm the one going into student loan debt. But the reality is, and what scares me, when his loans came due, we applied for that forbearance, and he was able to put off paying those loans for a little while, and then we told them what we could afford. But there are still months where we can't pay it. It's not reality. We know what happens when we dwindle our savings, when savings gets depleted and a car breaks, and we have 10-year-old cars. We're not the type of people who have.
So could you tell me kind of what is the student, and if I ask any questions that you feel intrude on your privacy, just say, I'd rather not answer. So we're cool with that.
Certainly.
So I'm not here to probe privacy. I'm here to identify obstacles, and where sometimes our rules are dumb. Federal government is capable of either being smart or dumb, not a lot of it in between. My question is, so here, and I'll come back, but may I ask, what is the student debt that your husband owes?
I think at this point it's probably about $25,000.
Okay.
Not a lot.
You're going into debt,
I am.
and I'm going to come back because I need to hear from everybody. We could talk each other for about 30 minutes. But this is exactly what I wanted to hear, because we tend to think of students. So when we write policy, we have somebody in mind that's 18 years old and is single and has a family to fall back on. And that might or might not be Sue. In this case, you've got a husband and wife. He's already in debt. But and exactly though in the career we need people, and men going into nursing is excellent. But now you're going to go into debt, and I'll come back, because the question that I'll ask you is when we write our rules, and then maybe when we get to the administrators, what happens how we calculate husband and wife loans? Because it can be pretty crushing. Is there anything else you wanted to tell me, Kelly?
What my biggest concern now is that I graduate in December and I'm going on to Frostburg, which means more debt. And I have plans to go on further after Frostburg, which means more debt. And I have children, my 15-year-old son, who is absolutely brilliant, and I'm not saying that because he's mine. He really is. He's already afraid. He's already saying things to me like, how will I go to school? I don't want this debt. What will I do? And that scares me. It really does. How do I can't save and have money for me. How can I have money for him?
We'll come back now.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Our second student from Allegany College is Christina Robertson. Two Robertsons, but they're not related, I learned that. Christina is a second-year student majoring in accounting, and she also resides in Cumberland.
A second-year student where?
Here at Allegany.
Christina?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd like to share my story about college affordability.
You need to pull that up and belt it out.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Christina Robertson, and I'd like to share my story about college affordability. I know everybody has a story, but I'd like to share my personal story of how I've dealt with affordability. As a freshman student, I was eligible for the Pell Grant and also 2 loans. At the time, I didn't need them. I had a job at work study in financial aid. Vicki Smith is the director at financial aid. She's one of my bosses. She's pretty wonderful. She works with me very well with my schedule, everything. Thank you, Vicki. I also had another job as a waitress. I worked nights because of my full-time school schedule. I would go to class in the morning and then waitress at night, and then I also had another job on the weekend, so I was pretty busy. I did that so I could afford transportation. I had to pay for another engine for my vehicle, so I did those jobs. As a sophomore, I decided that I was going to move out on my own, so I know I need money for that. And at the time, on the FAFSA, which is how to apply for financial aid, you have to answer these questions. And then if you're not 24, if you're not a veteran, if you don't have kids, you do have to provide parent information. And at the time, that was something I couldn't do. So I had to figure out how I was going to be able to fix that or do something about that. And Miss Vicki Smith, it was a tedious process. It's very difficult to try to get that to go through. But Vicki helped me with that, and we finally got it to go through. So that's something that whenever I transfer to Frostburg, is it going to transfer there? How am I going to be able to do that? The cost of living without that information, I know that I have to pay for rent, pay for insurance, all this other stuff. So that's something that I'm kind of in the middle of. Will I need a loan? Will I not need a loan? Constantly taking money out of savings and putting into checking for that month so I can afford the cost of transportation, food. Whenever you get paid at the end of the month, putting the money back into savings and trying to balance that out in case I would have to take out a student loan or something, which is something I need to keep in mind for whenever I go to Frostburg.
So you intend to go to Frostburg?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Christina. Our next panelist is Kelly Maffett. Kelly is a student at Garrett College. She lives in Oakland, Maryland. She's a second-year student majoring in general studies, planning to transfer to earn a bachelor's degree.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Like you said, my name is Kelly. I was born and raised in Garrett County. I have lived there my entire life on a small farm. I am in my second year at college. I am going to be earning my general studies degree in May, as long as everything works out okay. I do work two jobs, one full-time, one part-time at the college as a work study, in addition to going to school full-time. I do have to go full-time and keep my GPA at a certain level to continue to receive the Garrett County Scholarship, which does cover my tuition at Garrett. I currently have a 3.6 GPA in addition to working 60 hours plus a week. I also work on my family farm. I have responsibilities there as well as with school. And in order to pay for my responsibilities, I have paid for my own car. I pay my own insurance. Luckily, I am fortunate enough to still live at home with my parents, where I do live there rent-free. They pay for my meals. They would help me if I ever needed it, but I pay for my own way. I pay for my own gas to get to and from school, to and from work. And it is difficult to have that responsibility on my shoulders, to know that if it comes to the end of the month where I might not be able to pay my bills, or what can I sacrifice this month and put off and maybe pay next month so I can cover everything that I have to pay. I am fortunate enough to, like I said, have the Garrett County Scholarship to cover my tuition, but it doesn't cover the fees, it doesn't cover books and things like that, the cost of transportation. So the grant money that I apply for, the scholarships I apply for, help me a lot. My family is a middle income family, so I don't qualify for the Pell Grant or some of the other financial aid that is possible to be received. I don't qualify that. My parents make too much money, but not enough to pay for my college. After I have my associates, I have the intention of moving on in the health and behaviors and health science. I'm very focused on fitness and nutrition, and I want to be able to teach others that, but that requires a degree that's very expensive to obtain. Other colleges that I've looked into, I have gone online and looked at the cost of tuition to attend those colleges, and I have instantly looked at another college because I can't afford that one. I want to be able to teach others and help others live a healthy life, but I can't do that without having proper education myself. I was raised to go to school. That was never a question in my family. It was, you go to college after you go to high school. My parents have done an amazing job in raising me to know that education is extremely important, but they've also raised me to be independent enough to know that I need to work both jobs plus go to school, and to be responsible enough to carry on that load. I want to be able to move on and go on to college, and I have every intention of doing so, but I will be taking out loans when it comes to that time. I have every intention of being a young mom. I want to have a family as soon as possible, but I'm going to be starting a family with a massive amount of debt because of my student loans I'm going to have to take out.
It's very powerful. Thank you. Thanks to this end.
Thank you very
Can
much.
we kind of like turn this around a bit? It's a little hard for me to see everybody.
Would you like
and-
to smile?
No,
Okay.
it's,
I'll sit down.
no, we're fine.
Our next student is Quentin Bonneville. Quentin is from Snow Hill, Maryland, which is downstate.
Well, he's from one end of the state to the other. I mean, Somerset County is the farthest south county that I represent, and Garrett is the northwestern most. So that's a long drive. Quentin, let's hear your story.
Well, at age 5, I lost my birth mother, and
Quentin, could you pull that microphone up? It's
sure. At the age of 5, I lost my birth mother, and that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with. And I grew up with a stepmom, and I loved my stepmom just as if she was my mother, but I knew deep down inside that's not mom. So as I went to school, I was constantly bullied just because I was different. I still struggled in school and out of school financially with my family. We struggled every day. And when it came down to basic needs, we were always denied some of the welfare type of things like food stamps and medical insurance. And as I went to school, I was still bullied because of my clothes, my shoes, whatever I went to school with, it was very cheap. So as I got to high school, I was still bullied. And then when I got to the 11th grade, my father was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I sat with my father just about every day to make sure he was healthy. But my father was a skinny person, and even after chemotherapy, it was as if I was looking at his skeleton. And it was a horrific sight each day.
That's a lot on a young man's shoulders that you did.
So I watched my father take his last breath on January 1st of this year. And it basically motivated me to come to college. My father fought that cancer, and yes, he may have lost his battle, but he kept his faith every day. And I do wish that my father was here, but in a way I am still glad I went through so much, because I wouldn't have been this strong. And now that I am in college, I have to take out 2 extra loans just to make sure my everyday needs for clothes and food are met. And it's gonna still pile up because I want my life to be successful. So I want to become a teacher. And after I start teaching for a certain amount of time, I want to get my doctorate. And after I have my doctorate, maybe I will go on to be a college professor, but I want to live that American dream. Thank you.
Well, first of all, Quentin, we'd like to express the condolences to you on the loss of your father. No matter what age, when you lose your father, your knees feel like jelly, and you can't believe it. And so, again, my sympathy, but you certainly carried a lot of responsibility on those manly shoulders of yours, and so we'd like to express that. And thank you for telling us your story and all the obstacles that, that when you're poor, it invites a lot of other things that kind of erode and corrode your ability to go to school and function. So thank you for that very poignant story. Yes, Brandon, right?
Yes.
Doctor, did you want to introduce
Sure.
Brandon?
We have from Frostburg State University, Brandon Kelly, and Brandon is from Baltimore, Maryland. He is a graduate student studying business and education technology. Brandon?
Graduate student?
Yes. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Brandon Kelly. So basically, I've been on both sides of, I guess, financial aid. So I do remember my freshman year, I was offered a Pell Grant, and I also had work study. And I remember literally 2 weeks before school started, I got a letter in the mail. Pretty much the government had removed my Pell Grant. They said my mother made too much. It was like literally like maybe $10 over, I guess, whatever that income level is. That, but which part?
I didn't, you said $10, I couldn't.
Yeah, so I had qualified for a Pell Grant and work study, and literally 2 weeks before school started, I had gotten a letter in the mail saying that they had removed my Pell Grant because my mother had made too much, and it was literally like maybe $10 or $15 over whatever that level of income is. So I started college, taking out a loan my first year. We were kind of set that we were going to have that Pell Grant to get through the first semester of school. That way I wouldn't have to, take a loan out, hopefully my first year. So going into my first semester, knowing that I'd take out a loan was just, it was difficult. So I know second semester I had to do the same thing. I did work really closely with Student Support Services with the TRIO program. So I was work study, so they helped me, get financial aid. They really work endlessly to make sure that students are able to get that financial assistance that they need. I do remember that last year, and it was my senior year in college, and I had gotten a grant for, I think it was another Pell Grant. It was like $1,500 for both semesters. Right before I graduated, I had applied for graduate school, so I was expecting, that $1,500 to come in, and they had taken that money away. So it was just like, wow, I'm going on to higher education. I've taken out loans every single semester. The interest is accruing on each loan, so I'm already going into maybe like $20,000 in debt before I even start, my graduate program. And just knowing that they took that money away was just like, wow, am I going to take out another loan and maybe even max it out, just because, graduate school does cost a lot more. The classes are more expensive, the books are more expensive. So it was just, I went to financial aid, and they were basically, it was explained to me that, for graduate students, it's really difficult for them to get, I guess, grants and financial aid and scholarships and whatnot. And I didn't understand. It was just like, well, if I had the money, before I graduated, why couldn't they just, I guess, give it back to me in a sense? So I ended up taking whatever that max loan was for that semester. And, right now, I'm going into, I graduate in a year or so, and I'm going to be going in with, I know, at least $30,000+ in debt. And
Number again, son?
at least $30,000. And that's that's with the interest and whatnot. So I don't know if maybe they could just figure out a way to take care of the interest rates, because just being in school, knowing that you have to pay interest rates, knowing that that's pretty much what accrues during your time in college, it's just going to be difficult for me knowing that I'm going to be graduating with the master's, because most businesses and jobs, they are kind of requiring that in today's, I guess, business industry and whatnot. So just knowing that, okay, well, I got my master's, now what's next? I apply for jobs, but I may not necessarily get that job just because I have my master's. So now it's like, well, 6 months you don't have a job, but the loan companies are calling your phone saying, hey, you need to start paying minimum payments, and you don't have the money, so the interest keeps accruing, and it keeps increasing, and you're just going deeper in debt. So right now I'm just hoping and praying that once I finish this program, I can at least get a decent paying job, so I can at least pay off the interest and start paying those loans before they get too deep, and before I know it, I just won't have any money going into the business field.
Brandon, may I ask, what is your master's degree in?
Business and education technology. It is an interdisciplinary program.
Business?
Yes, 2 focuses.
Business and technology?
Yes.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
And
it's a
pretty much high demand, but debt is debt.
Yeah.
Right?
So at this point, I'm just hoping I can, somehow, land a job to at least start paying it off. But I think that's one of my biggest fears right now.
I got it. We'll come back to you, okay,
All right.
son? Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, we're ready to move to our last student on our panel from Frostburg State University. We have Andrew Bach, and Andrew is from Mount Savage, Maryland. He's a third-year student majoring in geography. Andrew?
Hello, everyone. So my name's Andrew, and I've lived in Mount Savage my whole life, so I'm local to the area. I went to Mountain Ridge High School, and now I'm currently up at Frostburg State University. After hearing their stories, and I know their stories resonate with students all over the country, it really makes me feel bad for my financial aid situation. Throughout high school, at the end of high school, I had a 4.23 GPA, and my SAT scores were somewhere around an 1800. So at Frostburg State University, I qualified for the academic financial aid, which was $5,000 a year for every 4 years that I go there. And I'm very thankful for that. And then also filling out the FAFSA and receiving federal and state financial aid. I actually have enough financial aid to cover my tuition, and I receive a refund check at the beginning of each semester for the access that I have. And I know it almost seems selfish of me, that I'm getting so much financial aid for all the other students that have to go through tough times. So I'm very thankful and appreciative for everything I've received so far. So personally, my financial aid at Frostburg State, I haven't had any problems. Everything, I'm very thankful for what I've been given. I've been given a lot. But there's 2 main things that I can think of that I could see helping a bunch of students. And if any of this stuff is wrong, Dr. Gibraltar, please correct me whenever you come up. But
Quiz.
yeah.
This is not a midterm.
Okay. But something I know that really helped me when I was at Mountain Ridge High School, my senior year, they brought in a bunch of people, and they sat down with each student and went through the FAFSA with them individually, with each student and their parents. Because I know the FAFSA can seem intimidating for a lot of people, especially whenever they're first filling it out. And I think that kind of program would be great to have in other high schools and colleges to offer to students that are, accepted or they've committed to the university. They would get a letter saying you come in and bring in your papers at this time on this day, and we'll be able to help you out. Because I know the FAFSA does help out a lot of people. It gives them a lot of federal aid. The other thing that I thought about was my academic financial aid. As far as I know, at Frostburg State University, the only way you can receive that is upon entering the university. So whenever you first come in as a high school student or as a transfer student. But if you don't make the requirements at the beginning of whenever you first come in, then I don't think you're eligible to receive any sort of extra academic financial aid. And I'm not sure how other universities work, but I think some sort of opportunity like that would give students an incentive to do well in school and to keep going, so that they wouldn't be getting a 4.0 GPA, but they would be continually taking out loans and getting buried with student debt. So I think that kind of thing really helped me out, and I would like to see it offered for not only students that are just coming in, but for students that are continuing college. Maybe they didn't do very well in high school, so they didn't meet the GPA requirements whenever they first came in. But then they get to college and they realize, hey, this is important stuff, and they start getting 4.0s, in every class. And I think there should be extra financial aid for those students that really try hard and do well.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Now's the time where I'd like to engage in a couple of questions. But first of all, before I do, I'd like to say to our friends in the audience, isn't this an impressive group of young people? Don't you admire really, listening to their stories already, their grit, their determination to get an education, the obstacles that they've dealt with in their own lives, the fact that with the exception of the way Andrew just spoke, every single one has had to work so hard to get to school and work so hard to stay in school, part-time, full-time, all the time, when they are in demanding careers, graduate in business, the accounting. We could go down this spectrum of what these young people want to do. And each and every field that they have just talked about, from business to education to combining business with technology, like in our cybersecurity world, these are fields that we need. And when we talk here to Kelly and the family debt, because I think that's the first time this has come up in our roundtable, Kelly, and we thank you for your story, is the combined debt of both the husband and wife, and what that means, and again, in careers. Kelly, what did you want to major in? I mean, you're in, but where are you heading? So you want to be a social worker. Did you know I have a master's degree in social work? Don't you think I have a therapeutic personality?
Some would say that about me.
Seriously, though. But that means completing an undergraduate degree and to move into administration or certain areas of clinical social work, you will need a master's. So that's a long way to go. Kelly, what recommendation would you give me, or could you tell me when you have to pay your student debt? What's your husband's first name?
Jared.
Jared?
Yes.
That you and Jared face. When you pay your debt, are you treated as two separate individuals, or is there recognition of family debt and the fact that you have 4 children and quite a bit of family responsibility?
We will be treated as separate individuals.
So there's no recognition of the cumulative debt. So in a given family, and families absorb debt. So if you're paying for a mortgage, that's family debt. If you're buying a car, that's family debt.
Correct.
So there's no recognition
Correct.
for the family debt.
And now my son, who's entering college, he'll be a third student loan debt.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But let's stick strictly to
Right,
the
but
spouse.
yes, we would be
Okay. So I'd
separate.
like to keep strictly, so that's another dimension.
Yeah.
But for this, so there's not. So when we come back to talk to the administrators and the financial aid, I'd like to get their insights onto this. Now let's go to your husband and nursing.
Yes,
So nursing is really a shortage field.
absolutely.
And in rural communities, that's a particularly sensitive issue. I know talking with the commissioners and others over the years, this has been one of the issues that have come up. Did you feel that there was any thought that, did he get any help because he was going into nursing?
Absolutely, yes.
So the nursing scholarships did help.
He did. He received a very wonderful. He got a lot of support from the college specifically in the nursing program, and there were actually multiple scholarships available for nursing students.
Okay.
And our health system definitely recognizes the need.
Well, you know, first of all, I feel very close to this topic, and if I could just share a personal story. When I was a senior in high school, I was at a Catholic girls' high school. My father's small business, he was a grocer, had a fire. And my father had to rebuild his business. I offered not to go to college, though we'd always talked about it. My father was a wonderful man and wanted to ensure the education of my sisters and I so that we could take care of ourselves, like a lot of the families in this room. I offered to go to night school because I'm in Baltimore. There was Loyola and no other schools. They said, if you don't go now, you'll never go. So they worked, and I had to help in the store, but that was a weekend. Okay, that was a weekend. When it came time for graduate school, there was some of the funds out of the Great Society and Community Mental Health. I was already 27 years old when I went to graduate school. So graduate school paid for my tuition and gave me a living stipend of $50 a week at that time. Otherwise, I couldn't have gotten my master's. Is any of that available to you? So first of all, I know what it's like for a family to sacrifice. If my father and mother had not done that, I don't know if I'd be sitting here today. And I want to say to every boy and girl here and in Western Maryland, that's why I'm committed to making college more affordable. If you don't get a chance to go when you can go, we all suffer. We all suffer. The family suffers in terms of being able to earn a living. Society suffers from not having the talent that's really represented up here, and I bet in these schools. So what do you think would help you the most? A direct scholarship? The fact that you want to go into a field where there is a shortage, where we do need people? I'm just thinking of just the need for nurses and social workers and all in our communities.
I think absolutely that would help me.
No,
I'm going to do it
no,
regardless.
tell me, but I'm here on public policy issues now.
Yes.
So
yes.
what would be your public policy recommendation?
I think in a perfect world, absolutely. If something existed that paved the way for me to be able to support my family and continue my education, yes.
Okay.
And my husband as well. Jared was working. Jared is working now to support me while I'm going to school, but I'm getting further and further into debt. I know that when I finish here, I'll have enough to start Frostburg as a junior. So I don't have a long time at Frostburg. But I've already looked into the master's program. I know where I intend to go. I know what that looks like and what the debt is.
No, but it'll take a long while.
It will take probably another 2 years on top of that.
Okay, I think I've got it. Christina, let's go to you. You talked about you want to go into accounting. Again, that's an excellent field, and we certainly do need people. And in fact, there's whole new careers in something called forensic accounting. Have you heard about forensic accounting?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
What have you heard about it?
I heard that it's going to be a very popular field. I heard that that it's in with like.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's so terrific about it. It's how we catch the bad guys.
Yes.
So if you want to stop like ISIL, those barbaric terrorists, we got to stop the money. Forensic accounting now is helping us catch really fraud defrauding our country. So right now we have forensic accountants working in Social Security Administration in Baltimore at Woodlawn to catch all the people who are trying to cheat us, like phony names in prisons where they invent phony people to really kind of rob us. So we got a career for you, but we got to get you through school. Tell me, do you think the Pell Grant covers enough when you talked about this? Do you think we should have a full all-year-long Pell Grant?
The Pell Grant that's offered, it covers the fall semester and then also the spring. Right now, the Pell Grant does cover my books and some of my expenses, but not all of them.
So do you think the Pell Grant should be expanded?
Yes.
To what?
I'm not sure. It would just depend on the needs of the student. I think that as long as it covers the tuition, the books, the fees, I think it should extend to a little bit of the transportation or the cost of.
Would it have helped you to have an all-year-long Pell Grant?
Yes.
In what way?
I would probably be able to cut back on some of my hours that I do work because it does interfere some with homework and getting everything that I need to get done. But I still manage to do it.
Well, you're very impressive. Kelly, you didn't qualify for a Pell Grant, is that right?
No, I did not.
So in this country, we're not rewarding work. In other words, here's a family that made it to the middle class, and obviously you have a wonderful family, and the family farm sounds just terrific. But really, you were cut out of everything, weren't you?
Basically, yes. I didn't qualify my family made too much money to qualify for the financial aid, but they don't make quite enough to still put me through school.
Do you feel that really we need to look at expanding the eligibility for Pell Grants, that it's too narrow in terms of the middle class?
Yes, I do. I'm not the only person at my college or in any college that is in the same situation where their family just makes a little bit too much money to qualify for the grants. And there's a lot of people in my situation who just don't have the means of going to college if they don't have the ability to find jobs that they can put themselves through.
Well, one of your big concerns is not the debt that you have, but to do the career you hope to love and be able to support yourself.
Correct.
You're looking at completing undergraduate school and possibly graduate school.
Yes.
And that's breathtaking, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't have any debt yet, but it's coming, and that scares me more than anything.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Brandon, let me go to you. You're a graduate student. Did you enter undergraduate school with a lot of debt? No, did you enter graduate school with a lot of debt?
Yes, I did.
So for many of the programs that now require a master's, or over a lifetime, some people don't go get their master's to their late 20s or whatever. Where did you go to undergraduate school, Brandon?
I actually went to Frostburg.
Oh,
so I just rolled over, yeah.
So you were able to roll it over?
Yes.
Did they give you any good guy bonuses for completing 4 years there and count any credits?
You know, I think I got a substantial amount of experience there and leadership opportunities. So,
what help for graduate school did you really get for help?
well, actually, right now I am a grad assistant, so they do help pay tuition and whatnot. Actually, my first semester was in the spring of graduate school, so I started to pay.
Let me ask you this. Does Pell Grants also cover graduate school?
Well, I don't get Pell Grants now, so no.
No, I didn't think so. So a Pell Grant doesn't cover graduate school?
Yeah, no, not at all. It wouldn't.
No. So the whole idea that if you needed a Pell Grant when you were a sophomore and you were in a field, these Pell Grants should continue through education. And again, I'll come back to administrative recommendations, because sometimes there are very rules. So here's Brandon. He was eligible for a Pell Grant if he had been a senior, but now he's moving on, ready for really the job world. And in our state and in our contiguous area, these are highly, highly desirable backgrounds. So the very aid you were eligible for as an undergraduate you're not eligible for as a graduate student.
Exactly, yes.
In other words, and you actually have less opportunity as a graduate student. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
Boy. And you're older and you have more expenses, maybe more family things.
Exactly.
Okay. Andrew. Yes. Mount Savage, and you want to go into geography, so.
Yeah.
Well, I have longitude and attitude. Tell me how much, guys, so we can talk about latitude. Andrew, what do you want to be with your major in geography?
That's a great question. I'm still asking myself. I'm really not sure yet. This fall, I'm going to start looking for internship opportunities for this coming summer. But as far as what I actually want to do with the degree, I'm not quite sure. I've been asked that a bunch of times. I actually started Frostburg State as an engineering degree. And then after the first year of going through things, I just realized it wasn't quite for me. It wasn't something I really enjoyed. So I thought back to high school of what classes I really took a passion in. And that made me switch to geography. So my main goal is just getting through the undergraduate program at Frostburg State, and just following my passion, seeing what opportunities there are available, doing an internship so I can see what kind of jobs there are. But I'm really not exactly sure what I want to do yet.
I understand that. But somewhere along the line, you're going to have to think about graduate school as well.
Right, yeah.
And what do you see lies ahead for you?
What do you mean as far as graduate school? Mm-hmm. Well, if
Not
I were...
your major, but really when you said, look, I'm in pretty good shape.
Right.
You talked about the need of fellow students who have a more rocky road than you have, either academically or financially.
Yeah.
So right now, you've been in undergraduate school in pretty good shape. Well, that's really a blessing, and you've
Yes.
acknowledged that. But as you look ahead, you're going to have some significant demands. Have you thought about that?
Right. Well, if I did choose to go into graduate school, I would more than likely continue at Frostburg State because I think a big thing that has helped me is just that I stayed home. I commute every day.
Stayed at home?
Yeah, so that
Just-
really cuts down on costs.
I stayed
since
at home,
you don't have
too.
to,
Yeah.
you don't have to pay for rent. You don't have to pay for food every day because you can just, eat what your parents make, and that's pretty nice too. Because I know a lot of kids, they complain that they miss their parents' cooking. They really do. So I'm very fortunate that there's a
Well, I
really
think
nice
you've already put
university.
your geography to use. You knew how to find the best place to live.
Yeah, but I think having the university so close to home is a blessing. I'm really thankful for it, and I really didn't even look at any other colleges whenever I was applying. That's the only place I applied to, because I knew I wanted to stay at home. And I know a lot of kids aren't like that, because whenever they get to college, they want to just move out. They want to get away from home and get a full experience. But I think there are some perks to staying at home and staying so close.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Quentin, you've talked about how you want to be a teacher and actually even become not only to be a well-qualified teacher, as the law requires, to go into the classroom, and then even go on to graduate school to perhaps move into administrative positions or
Yes,
whatever.
ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that right? But what do you think are the biggest obstacles? Do you think it's going to be for you? Do you think it's going to be financial? Do you think it's going to be what?
I believe it will be financial and partially academic. I have had a lot of struggles throughout high school with learning, and I'm basically slower at learning more than anybody else. So that is also going to be a struggle in college for me.
So it might take you a little bit longer,
Yes.
which is okay, because that's okay. For some people, they can do it in 4 years. Some people can do it in 6 years, but that's okay. Have you ever heard the term wounded healer?
No.
Well, really what it is, there was a great philosopher named Henry Nouwen, and it's also in the social work literature, Kelly. And it's where people who themselves have gone through a lot of hardship, and then they take that hardship, and it develops in them incredible compassion, and then they can go on to help people who've had that same kind of hardship. whether it's working in a veterans hospital, maybe teaching people while they're getting better to get their GED, whether it will be with other things. So we need you. We need you, and we need you in education. So we just have to figure out how to do this. So God bless you and good luck on your own personal journey.
Thank you.
Okay. So, well, if I could make a few comments here. First of all, I think these stories were so poignant and they were so varied. I've learned a lot, really, about everybody's got a story, but really we have to be looking at the American story. And this is where I'd really need to hear the recommendations, because I'm hearing these students for an hour, and I've heard others around the state, but you hear them every day. So we really need to turn to our administrative panel, because at the end I've got some ideas and I would like to run them by you. Let me run some ideas by you now. So there is a bill pending in Congress. We lost only by 2 votes to be able to refinance your student debt. So Kelly, and to all of you, for the debt that you, right now in America, if you took out a loan on a car or a yacht, you can refinance it, but you can't refinance your student debt. So if you have interest rates that you're paying at 6 or 8%, and we could enable you to refinance for a government loan at 3%, we can't pass that law. We've been 2 votes short. But would refinancing debt help you?
Yes.
Would it help you?
Yeah.
Brandon?
Yes, it would.
Mm-hmm. Belt it out more.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the refinancing of the student debt, first of all, would, at least by reducing the interest rates, reduce your payment. The second thing is to make Pell Grants all year long. Would that help you?
Yes.
And Kristen,
Yes.
This Kelly said yes as well. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Christine.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, just turning to you, by making Pell Grants all year long, and I'll come back to why when we talk with the administrators, this would enable you to move yourself along faster, to either during the summer take that class that you need to do for a requirement, be able to just ace it, or if you're taking a very complicated thing, it might be quantitative statistics for you, Brandon, or an English literature course for you, Kristen. You can ace it, either something you got to do or something that you're going to have to give full time to. So would all year long go to all year long?
Yes.
Yes. Helps you get through faster and helps you get some of the courses you either need or you might be struggling with. Okay. Now I've got another idea, and this, you might not be the one to answer it. We'll go to the students. Each and every one of you wants to go into a field that could make a difference. And we have grants now that we're doing, like with the VA in nursing, where we swap debt for duty. So if you come to work in a field where we need you, and you come to work literally now for government, okay, which would be for a VA hospital, in an underserved teaching area, and so, or nursing and so on, and your debt is forgiven. For every year you serve, say we forgive a year of your debt, or how it would be calculated. So that's one tool. But you know, not everybody wants to work for government. There's not always, if you're down in the Baltimore-Washington corridor, there are a lot of government agencies that could use you. Just look at our VA in Baltimore. You have Morgantown here, and you have the Great Cumberland VA Clinic, but we have several hospitals, nursing homes. You get what I'm saying. So here's my idea, which is that, and I'm not so sure that it would help this Kelly, but for the others, where if you worked for you volunteered for a nonprofit more than 50 hours a year, we would reduce your debt based on roughly the minimum wage. Do you follow me? Excuse me, it's the humidity in the sinus. So I'm just working on this idea. I might introduce a bill. It might be a good idea, it might be a bad idea. I'm trying to get ideas about the idea, which would go like this. Say you went, so you've graduated, you have an accounting degree, you have others, but you volunteered, say, for Habitat for Humanity, and you're going to do 100 hours a year, okay? 2 hours a week, or in bulk. And we would reduce your student debt roughly by $1,000. What do you think about that? So if we give tax breaks to send jobs overseas, and we give tax breaks if you give money, but we don't give tax breaks if you give your time. And what we need in our nonprofit world is new idea, new young people, new energy, doing things that need to be done, building a sense of community, and along the way trying to forgive debt. What do you think about that? Am I off the wall on this? Or is this you saying, look, we're not going to have time, we are going to struggle?
I mean, honestly, I think that would be an incredible idea. I mean, that would be a new opportunity. Anything helps at this point. So I would definitely be open to trying that. I know myself, I've participated in Habitat for Humanity, I think, since my sophomore year in high school. So that's something that I'm used to doing.
So you've
right.
been a Habitat guy.
Right. So I think that, I mean, you have to start somewhere, and I mean, like I said, anything helps. So I think that would be a great idea to at least try to implement.
Christine, what do you think about that?
I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it would help a lot.
What do you think's wonderful about it?
That you're able to use your time and service to pay off a debt that you otherwise couldn't pay off, that you would have to keep putting off to when you would get that opportunity at the job.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, did you have a comment? Because
I
you already
I don't know
have.
if you were excluding me, but I already give a lot of my time. I do. I already volunteer probably more than that a year. Mm-hmm. I believe in it completely, wholeheartedly. I think it's a wonderful idea. I would be the first one to sign up.
Okay, and my gosh, and with all that, going to school and being a mom and 4 kids and a husband working on the night shift, and you still have time?
I do. I'm very busy.
Whatever they're serving her, give me a double. Well, you see, but it recognizes service. But again, I really think, just like we should reward work, we should reward families who made it to the middle class and not punish them, not punish them. I worry about the poor people at modest incomes not having a fair shot. But in the middle, the very rules of government means you're not eligible for government assistance, and you're not affluent enough to be as a pay-as-you-go and an easy-as-you-go. So the great middle is being squashed again. And then here, again, if you can give money, which is terrific, somebody like me at my age and income, writing a check for Habitat would be great. But I can't do what Brendan and Quentin could do. Could you imagine those guys either at Habitat or Quentin and Brandon actually working in a school, helping young people who really don't even think about technology, with his skill in technology, his compassion, what a turbo team they would be? No, I'm just thinking about that. So I'm going to work on this because it seems like this is a very good idea. And when we get to the administrators, I'd like your review. Well, listen, I think we've covered that. Is there anybody else up here that has anything else they would like to say to me to take back to Washington, or that you would just like to just comment on?
Senator Mikulski, I just thank you for listening to our stories. It has been honestly, it's been a blessing to come here, and I honestly thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, Quentin, thank you, because every single young man and woman up here I think will go on to be an organizational leader, but right now you've certainly been inspirational leaders. I thank you and look forward to taking your ideas and converting them into action. Thank you so much.
Welcome back, everyone, and Senator Mikulski and my colleagues in this theater. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our second panel. Representing Western Maryland colleges are Dr. Jonathan Gibralter, to my right, from Frostburg State University, Ms. Julie Yoder, Dean of Continuing Education and Workforce Development from Garrett College, and myself, Cynthia Bambara, President of Allegany College of Maryland. And we will be followed by Nicole Christian, President of Garrett County Chamber of Commerce, and Stuart Czapski, Executive Director of the Allegany County Chamber of Commerce. And I will begin my remarks, but you want to introduce?
Well, no, I'm not going to talk again because we want to turn this open, but I want to, just one second, I've got so many papers. First of all, I want to acknowledge that the Western Maryland Labor Council is here. Is George Kuntz here? Where's Jody Oliver? Jody, would you come up and join us? Do you mind? Because I'd like to have, because we've been so close and you represent so many folks. Really, because I want to talk about jobs and where we're going here. Right over here. And then, listen, I think we're going to have a very meaty panel, and because the whole idea is listening to our presidents and what their recommendations are. And then how, from business and labor, we hear where are the jobs and what do you think you need in a workforce and what we should be thinking about, work studies and so on, okay? Because it's not just about government and government money. It's really about opportunity. And what I'm going to do to work with the private sector, our commissioners and so on, for jobs right here in our community. We want jobs. Jobs today and jobs tomorrow. So, hoorah. So, okay, now.
All right, thank you. Senator, I'm going to be focusing my remarks on federal grants and work study. We've coordinated the focus of our comments so that we hit on different areas of financial aid. But first of all, I wanted to give you a little bit of background of our students here at Allegany. Last year, we had approximately 90% of our students who received some type of aid to pursue their education. Our local community has been incredibly supportive of our college and our students through gifts to our foundation for scholarships. And just this past year, our county commissioners established the Allegany County Opportunity Scholarship from proceeds from the Rocky Gap Casino. And that allows approximately $300,000 in scholarships for Allegany County residents.
Wow.
And
You're actually using your casino money
Yes.
for scholarships?
Casino bill.
Somebody's hit the jackpot.
Right.
Wow, that is terrific.
So I did want to
I
mention.
haven't heard that anywhere.
So Commissioner Valentine is down front, you see, and he certainly was instrumental in helping us with that program.
Absolutely.
However, $300 is a wonderful boost for our Allegany County students, but we serve students in this particular area from a number of counties because we're contiguous to Pennsylvania and West Virginia. Over half of our students, 53.5%, receive federal Pell Grants. That's about 1,816 students who received about $6.9 million. So I did want to focus my comments on the federal Pell Grant program, and I have a few suggestions to share, and certainly we can engage in dialogue. And you've hit on some of these already with the students, but one example is that the Pell Grant program needs to be more flexible to support fast-tracked and or non-traditional students. Here at our college, we offer a variety of career-oriented programs and degrees that run year round. They don't, they're on the fast track, and our nursing program is an example, our occupational therapy program, physical therapy, and so forth. And the students go throughout the summer, but those students who are on Pell Grant, and it's not year round, if they don't have any money left from their fall and spring awards, they're left to either seek scholarships or take out loans to make sure they continue with their program. And as you know, we had that year-round program for just a short period of time in 2009 through 2011, but when it was cut, we saw a significant impact on our students. So, and I know you know a lot about that because you alluded to that before with our students. So we're very supportive of going back to year-round Pels. The second thing is the program needs to truly fund low-income families. As I said, over half of our student body receives Pell Grants, and of those, 36.4 qualified for the full amount based on family income. So you see there's a gap there of almost 20% of students who don't get the full Pell Grant. In 2011-12, the income threshold was $31,000, and then it was initially raised to 32 in 12-13, but lowered to 23 due to the Consolidated Appropriations Act. And this year, the threshold.
Could you just say what now is the Pell Grant eligibility?
Right, $24,000. So it was reduced by $6,000 the threshold. I'm sorry, $8,000.
That's okay. It's $24,000. So if a family or is it a family or an individual?
I'm going to look to Vicki for that.
It's a family.
Family.
That's the threshold for the automatic zero EFC eligibility, whereby if they have that income, they automatically get the full amount of grant.
Vicki's our financial aid director.
Thanks, Vicki.
Anyway, what our ask is to bring it back up to that 32,000 threshold so that we can help more people who really do need it, who qualify for low income. The other regulation that we'd like to talk about is the open door guideline for community college. We are open access institutions, and we would like to see the ability to benefit guideline restored for those students who don't have the equivalent of a high school diploma, and where the students successfully complete 6 credits of college to be eligible to receive federal monies. In 2012, the Title IV eligible program could demonstrate the ability to benefit by passing an independent test to prove that they would have the ability to benefit, and or they could complete 6 college credits and then be eligible. But beginning in 2012, students who do not have a high school diploma or a GED cannot receive federal monies. And this extends to another population of students that we serve, and it's our homeschooled students. And the laws can be very restrictive and complicated. They differ by state, and it's also oftentimes difficult to determine if the state requirements meet the federal requirements. So it would help that group of students as well. A fourth idea is the lifetime eligibility used in Pell. Beginning with 2012-13, students are limited to receiving a Pell Grant equal to 6 full-time years. The time usage went back to the very beginning of the program, and it's too restrictive. Many of our students who want to pursue a second associate degree or go on for a bachelor's degree exhaust their grant eligibility by the time they get into those programs. And students requiring excessive credits in remedial work could also exhaust that grant eligibility, and we have 80% of our students in some type of remedial work. The last thing we have to offer as a suggestion is to move to a prior year. And Vicki had to explain this to me. I didn't know what prior meant, but it makes a lot of sense. It would be moving to a prior year income when completing the FAFSA. This has been talked about for years and supported by the National Financial Aid Association, but what it means is students who complete their FAFSA for 14-15 would use the completed tax return for 12 instead of 13, because what happens is a barrier raises when for some reason the tax return can't be completed in a timely fashion so that the student could use that. If they could go back to the prior year, basically 2 years back, you got that. So that was the fifth idea that we had to share with you. And
Wow. Are you going to give me a quiz on this?
no, but I do have a handout I'll share with you.
I do need a handout. So what you're saying is that your recommendations, because that was very content-rich, Doctor. Thank you very much, and thank you for your able staff. What you're saying is that in order to help students, we really need Pell Grant reform.
Correct.
That the very nature, which is the basic anchor financial tool, really the very rules work against our students completing in a timely way, or because of family and other responsibilities, they need to go a little bit slower. We also penalize them there. Is that right?
Correct.
So, okay, well, thank you. Let's turn to Garrett, okay?
Yes. We will turn to Julie Yoder from Garrett College.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Senator Mikulski and President McClellan sent his regrets that he couldn't be here. I'd like to take a little bit different slant than the students that you've already heard from this morning, and I'm representing continuing education and workforce development. Yes. And the students that are enrolled in our training are typically pretty limited in the funds that are available to them. We do have a scholarship program, which I'll talk about in a moment. But beyond that, the students are looking at some of the human service agencies to help fund when they've got training dollars available, or their self-pay. In 2006, our Garrett County Commissioners formed a scholarship program that served students who are Garrett County Garrett County High School graduates, who completed a homeschool program or who were GED recipients. In 2010, they broadened that to include occupational. So some of the programs that we do, truck driving, machining, welding, certified nursing assistant, are all now eligible for that program. That began in 2010.
Well, that's impressive.
Yeah, it is. Very much so. We've had 41 students, 41 students take advantage of that to this point. For adults, however, the options are really limited, and that's our biggest challenge. And like as you heard from Kelly earlier, our workforce students are typically non-traditional, and they've got challenges beyond paying tuition and fees and books. They also have barriers like transportation and childcare, so it is an issue for us. Funding workforce programs is becoming increasingly evident with the emphasis on the skills gap, and that's defined as a mismatch of individuals who are seeking employment but lack the skills being sought by employers. It's a national issue, a state issue, and a local issue. And according to some information from Maryland Skills to Compete, by 2016, it's projected that 434,000 openings in the middle skill job market will be available, and those are positions that require more than a high school diploma but less than a 4-year degree. In Maryland, 48% of jobs are classified as middle skill, but only 37% of workers have the skills and training to be able to fill those jobs. In Garrett County, 48% of jobs are found in education, healthcare, manufacturing, and tourism and hospitality industry sectors, with many of those jobs classifying as middle skill. We view workforce development as a critical piece towards a solution in addressing that skills gap. At Garrett College, the majority of our workforce development programs provide an industry-recognized credential or certification when they successfully complete, and that does prepare them for an entry-level position and the ability to earn a sustainable living wage. The student doesn't have to end there, though. The credential can be the first step towards a credit certificate, an AA degree, or beyond. And that transition can be facilitated by building programs that begin on the continuing ed or workforce side and go to credit. That's a term called stackable credentials. It's getting a lot of exposure. And stackable credentials are independent courses or programs which can be accumulated over time to build up qualifications and help them move along a pathway or ladder. And we're starting to do that at Garrett and starting to encourage students who take our workforce programs to continue on. So access to support of workforce development is really key for us, and it would enable the workforce students to address the skills gap, provide resources, enable their success. And we feel it's a win-win for everyone. It provides a larger enrollment pool for credit programs, saves students time and money as they're earning credit for work they've done on the workforce side, and the successful completers of those programs help to bridge that skills gap.
Wow, that was pretty terrific.
Thank you.
And I'll have questions for you, because your primary source of funding is really coming out of the Department of Labor for workforce training. Is that correct for these non-traditional students?
No. Right now, the students who are exiting high school can access the county scholarship, but beyond that, the funding, well, I'm sorry, you're right. Our local workforce investment agency is funding a lot of students for us, but there's such stringent criteria to be eligible for those. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Yoder? Did you?
Oh, yes, we have Gibralter next from Frostburg State University.
Thank you, Dr. Bambara, and good morning, everyone. And I want to thank you, Senator Mikulski, for asking me to speak today. As Dr. Bambara said earlier, we communicated earlier and broke down our presentation so we all covered a different focus area for the presentation this morning. You know, it's more important now than ever before for young Americans to earn their college degree to compete in our modern day economy. And it's America's duty to enable them to earn that degree without burdening themselves with ever increasing student debt. And Senator, I want to applaud you publicly for your efforts to deflate this growing economic bubble and reiterate the promise of the American dream to future generations. Your vote for the Bipartisan Student Loan Certainty Act of 2013 helped prevent this bubble from growing unchecked by fixing the interest rates on federally subsidized and unsubsidized loans. And I believe had this bill passed, it would have really helped students enormously. I know that. Students today are going to college at a greater rate than ever before, and that's, I think, wonderfully important. Unfortunately, 70% of them are taking on student debt to earn that degree. And for those who earn a four-year degree, they're going to graduate with an average of about $30,000 in student debt. Some will owe less, some are going to owe more. And as of last year, total student debt in our country was at about $1.2 trillion. That's triple what it was a decade ago, and ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a pretty frightening number. And we know there's a positive correlation today between degree attainment and how much a person ultimately will earn over the course of their lifetime. So those students with a two-year degree will earn more than those with a high school degree. Those students with a four-year degree will have even greater earning potential, but the debt they've accumulated in the course of their education is likely to have a chilling effect on their prospects after graduation. The Fed reports that student loan borrowers are already in retreat from the housing and auto markets. So it's causing a collapse that is exponentially emanating out from what's happening at America's colleges and universities. Student debt is now the second largest form of consumer debt in the country behind mortgages, having surpassed credit debts this decade. Young Americans with student debt now have a worse credit score than those with no student debt. And while this may sound obvious, remember that 70% of our college graduates have this debt and also benefit from the higher earning potential that comes with a degree. Most of the Americans without student debt, they have no degree. It's incredibly difficult to tell to what degree the American government profits from these loans. The Government Accountability Office measures this very much differently than the private lending industry would. But according to GAO figures, the profit or loss changes dramatically year over year in an effort to zero out the income and costs associated with administering the loan programs. The bottom line to me is the federal government should not be profiting off of our students with these with the loan programs that they're designed to assist in the first place. The subsidized loan program was designed to help ensure every American student with the ability and desire to earn a college degree that they could afford to do so. By raising the earning potential of these Americans, they'll end up in higher tax brackets and help balance the federal budget. There's no reason these loan programs should stop these students from reaching their full potential. You know, Lyndon Johnson originally designed them to help education work as an escape from poverty. We need to reduce the interest rate on student loans as far as possible and get back to the original intent. Another student loan driver has been state-level reductions in per-student funding for public universities by 23% nationally from the 2007-2008 school year to today, which has led to a 28% increase in tuition costs. At Frostburg State University, like many quality regional comprehensive universities around the country, we've been working to keep our tuition as affordable as possible. And I know that my colleagues at Allegany and Garrett have been doing the same. In Western Maryland, we're very good at giving our students the best possible value for their educational investment. And you heard earlier, and I want to reiterate, that in Allegany County, our local government understands this as well. You said earlier, and I want to make the point, that you've never heard of casino revenue going back to first college scholarships. I think if you review this nationally, you will find this to be just about the only case where it occurs. And our local government understands this, and they've created the Allegany County Commissioner Scholarship that allows us at Frostburg to provide up to $2,000 in scholarships. And this program has only been in place for, Commissioner, 6 months? And we've already distributed over $120,000 in scholarships just at Frostburg State University for Allegany County residents to go to college. And at FSU, I'm also happy to say that we've designed a program that has now created a national model. And it's called the Associate Degree Scholars Award. And what it says is that if a student attends a state of Maryland community college and they persist through to graduation and they earn a degree with a grade point average. I'm saying this to the students who are at the community colleges on the panel. If you earn a degree with a grade point average of 3.0 or better, we will write down the cost of your tuition to what you paid to go to the community college. So you will not be paying the full freight to come to Frostburg State. Add to that Pell Grants, add to that other forms of financial aid, and I think that you'll...
Frostburg initiative.
That's a Frostburg
it's
initiative.
It's not system-wide at the University of Maryland.
It has just now, we've been doing it for 2 years, it has now become a system-wide policy.
So, isn't that 2 plus 2? Well, I'll come back. Okay, this is.
But I just want to finish by saying that you made an incredibly important point, and I heard it reinforced by our students today. And that is that when lawmakers, policymakers typically think about student debt, they only think about student tuition costs. And I think it's so important that they think about the cost of textbooks, which is astronomically high today. The cost of fees that colleges and universities have to tack on to support the infrastructure of their colleges and universities, the cost of transportation, the cost of childcare, the cost of day-to-day living. I think that when we think about the cost of tuition alone, it's easy for us to make the assumption that we're helping students, and we are, but I don't think we're helping them as much as they really need to be helped. Again, thank you so much for the work that you're doing for our students. It means a lot to all of us.
All of you. That was very good. Thank you, Doctor.
All right, we will now turn to the second half of our panel, which these folks are going to talk about our workforce needs. And I'm going to call first on Nicole Christian, the president of the Garrett County Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bambara, and thank you, Senator, for the opportunity to have this discussion today. As a rural county, for us, it's all about jobs and how to retain and grow our population to maintain our quality of life. And Julie mentioned earlier about the 48% of our workforce that's employed in the 4 industry clusters of hospitality, education, healthcare, and specialty manufacturing. Well, each of these industries requires training of some form or some form of post-secondary education. And thank goodness that we do have Garrett College and our other local educational institutions that are providing and making this training available. The current educational attainment in Garrett County, just to kind of give you a little background on that, 85% have a high school degree or higher, and 18.6% have a bachelor's degree or higher. So the 18.6 is low, not terribly low for a rural community, but certainly something we would like to see improve. But to do that, we need, our population needs the funding sources to make that possible. Our current median household income is around $44,000, and 57% of households are making less than $50,000 a year. That's household, that's not per individual. So you are talking about a population that is on the lower side of the income bracket. And without training or post-secondary education, these households are never going to be able to achieve the higher income potential, nor will they reach that middle class income status you were talking about earlier. And I thought Dr. Gibralter really clarified this very well. With 85% of our population reaching or achieving a high school diploma or GED status, that does mean 15% do not have a diploma. And I know in some communities around the country, this is a growing epidemic and the number of high school dropouts is increasing. I recently read a book by Jim Clifton, the CEO of Gallup. And in his books, it's called The Coming Jobs War. It's a fantastic book. He specifically correlates the high school dropout rate to the hopelessness of not being able to afford a post-secondary education or training of some sort. And now, certainly that's not the only reason that students drop out, but I'm going to actually call on Dr. Wilson just briefly. Dr. Wilson is our superintendent of Garrett County Schools. Dr. Wilson, how many of our...
How about we do Dr. Wilson after others finish? And Dr. Wilson, we'd like to hear your comments after these 3.
I just needed to ask her one question. Free and reduced lunch, what percentage of our students... So almost 50% of the students in Garrett County are free and reduced lunch. So when you start considering, that when that hopelessness starts to seep into the mindset of our students, if nearly 50% are on free and reduced lunch, how are they going to afford post-secondary education? And Mr. Clifton basically says that when middle school or high school students lose that hope for the opportunity to continue their education past high school, then they begin to lose interest in middle school and high school. And again, as I said, it's not the only reason for the dropout rate increasing, but it is a trend that is raising red flags, and it's a trend that can be corrected. There are also students that don't go on to graduate or postgraduate degrees because, again, that hopelessness of I can't afford it, the cost or the burdensome debt. Without a trained and educated labor pool, our employers are not able to fill their workforce needs. Many of our employers currently have to recruit from outside of Garrett County to find trained employees. This impacts our economic development recruitment efforts as employers want access to a trained labor pool. Now, luckily for Garrett County, our labor market does extend beyond the borders of our county. However, we need to consider how we can provide affordable training and secondary education to our residents to help the residents we have fill the jobs we have. We need to match that up. The Garrett County Scholarship is great. We thank the commissioners for funding this program and hope that continues. But now we have to figure out the next step beyond our local Garrett County Scholarship Program. What is our next step to make college and post-secondary education affordable? Thank you.
Stu.
And Stuart Czapski, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce in Allegany County, will speak next.
Thank you, Dr. Bambara. Thank you, Senator Mikulski. A couple things. From my perspective in Allegany County, we are talking about jobs. What does that mean to the average person? I think everybody wants to be productive. From my perspective, I look at it as looking forward to Monday morning as opposed to Saturday morning necessarily. Two ways of breaking it down. We need to provide the tools and skills to our young people and increasingly adults that are transitioning into different careers. Flip side, providing the workforce to expand our existing businesses here in Allegany County and attract new ones. Yesterday, I attended a meeting with the concept of bridges out of poverty, and it gave me some thoughts last night as I thought about it. Concept of getting by versus getting ahead. College attainment in Allegany County is less than 17%. That is less than half than Maryland's 37%, obviously an issue in rural areas. And part of that is, and I'm glad Jody's here, because, why is that? There's probably a number of reasons for that. We can have another seminar about that. But part of it's a return on investment. If I've got to go into debt $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, if I have more household debt in my family now than I've ever had, now that I'm putting 3 kids through college, what is that return on investment? Is the job I'm getting worth a $40,000 investment? It's a sheer business financial decision at that point. But what do our employers want here in Allegany County? The one thing I do want to mention, the Greater Cumberland Committee recently did a survey of local businesses in our region in cooperation with our institutions of higher learning. One of the questions was, please indicate which skill sets are needed by your workforce or which skills you have identified as being in short supply. Top 5, sales, customer service, management leadership, business accounting, computer software applications, and office skills. Another question, which are reasons for conducting employee training and development? Top 6, changes in technology, safety or emergency procedures, to promote the personal or career development of employees, to help employees develop more positive attitudes and work habits, need to improve the quality of our output, and new hires to not have necessary skills. One last point with that survey, one of the questions again was identify any weaknesses in your current workforce. Top 6, communication, interpersonal skills, critical analytical thinking, customer service, problem solving, leadership managerial, and lack of work ethic. When looking at our county seat, the city of Cumberland, since 2002, the jobs by industry that have changed since then, the greatest change in the positive, healthcare and social assistance, accommodation and food services, educational services, professional, scientific, and technical services, finance and insurance were the greatest growths. There were a number that declined. Talk for a second we're about getting by. I can't have this discussion without probably one of the biggest things that we hear from many of our members is the social skills. The social skills of our young people.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. Being employable. And what exactly does that mean? I mean, making good choices, passing a drug test, credit scores, the ability to understand how important GPA is from we talked about the grants and being able to, there's lots of scholarships out there, but many of it is, what have you done in your community? What is your GPA? Those decisions start in middle school and work through high school, because when you're applying for these grants, it's too late to, in some respects, starting when you're a senior in high school to do these things. The awareness was mentioned as well by the students with our support services in the community. In a community such as ours, when you talk about poverty and breaking that cycle, a lot of situations you don't have the support at home to walk someone through what it takes to apply for a Pell Grant, to do FAFSA, that sort of stuff. The services we have, the one-stop job centers, the things of that nature, lots of programs through the Allegany County school system that getting businesses and people into the school system to understand these kids, there are choices and there's help for them is a big thing. So it takes a village. Talk about getting ahead. Preparing for the jobs we have now and preparing for the jobs of tomorrow. Two things. What jobs do our students want? And what jobs do we as a community want? I do want to give a shout out to the City of Cumberland and to the Appalachian Regional Commission and to Maryland DBED. Strategic planning is big for any community. They are taking the initiative, the City of Cumberland, to decide what industries we want to target and go after those industries. That way we can prepare as a community to educate our workforce, to attract them and have them prepared. What's working so far? I can't go through a discussion without plugging my own organization, the Chamber of Commerce. We do have a standing education committee, and partnerships are important. Partnerships with the Allegany County School System, with our Career Center locally, with Allegany College of Maryland and Frostburg State University. We get together monthly and have these discussions, and we're constantly working towards what everybody needs. A few last things. The one thing that resonates about some of these programs, helping us pay for college is one thing. The other thing that is becoming evident as well is giving educators the tools that they need to be able to adjust their curriculum, to make changes for the changing industries and stuff. So that's very important. Keeping the cost down, and I'll do a couple more shout outs for some things that are working. At Allegany College, the EARN initiative, and the college took the lead on IT, and getting ready for the jobs that we feel in the city of Cumberland we can accommodate and attract. So doing the EARN initiative, the grant for the CNC machining, that they were able to purchase CNC machining and start that training, that cost was incredible, and they couldn't have done it without the grant. One thing that was mentioned, continuing education. It becomes evident to me that grants are not available for continuing education. And as these jobs are changing and are working at the same employer for 30, 40 years isn't happening anymore. So we have to adjust those skill sets.
And even that employer, same as they were 34
Correct.
years ago.
I agree. With regards to Frostburg State University, expanding their facilities, their infrastructure. Every few years, the ability to boast the CCIT building and things of that nature that give our students the tools they need and actually make our community realize that we've got a jewel here and let's take advantage of it. As a whole, you take all these pieces. You've got Allegany College's ability to make their adjustments, to keep their costs down. You have the transfer scholarship at Frostburg State University, which I do 2 years there, 2 years there. I take into consideration, I have the knowledge of FAFSA and what I got to do. And by the way, the county's going to give you a couple $1,000s to go towards that as well. So local education, we look at all these things that go together, is a very affordable option relative to education as a whole. Last but not least, I do, what's it got to do with education? But the Appalachian Regional Commission is one of those funding sources for infrastructure, for planning, for a lot of things that doesn't get enough notice, and that cannot go away for Western Maryland, in my personal opinion. So other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
That was excellent from both of you. Jody, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but the Western Maryland Labor Council is so important because it's an umbrella organization of all the labor unions, and there was a time when, of course, Western Maryland was really a robust manufacturing, and we've gone through lots of transitions and we've had meetings, but I wanted you to be at the table so we could just get any advice, insights you have on about what you see from your perspective about what your members are facing or what the members of your family, in other words, if you're a sheet metal worker, what are you facing as a mom or a dad to help your kids get ahead? Do you have any comments you'd like to share with us?
Thank you for coming back to Western Maryland and visiting our mountains. I'm also a graduate here of ACC. My men and women work out in the field, and they are out of the area. They have to travel at least, as we know, 40 miles to get out of the mountains and into any job. Very few work locally. The last job was the college, and the greatest job here in the last 17, 18 years was the hospital. So everyone has to pay for gas at the price that it is to get out, and then there's the health care and then the education for our children. I'm paying two colleges, and they'll be paying for their lives also. And the men and women that work in the trades, they have the apprenticeships, the journeymen, and they have to work while they're going to school also to get these trades. And then they have to think about their children. Do they go to college, or do they be the fourth, fifth generation pipe fitter or whatever? And that's, the family has known is, laying pipe and being plumbers. And they have the education, they have the skill, the knowledge. And some people look down on them because they're just a tradesman and they don't have a college degree. They do have a degree, and they have chosen to go and be our workers to help and work and take care of us. And their children see this and they want to better themselves, but we can't afford it. We are paying forever, and the colleges here are very good and very helpful. And yes, I was talking to someone the other day, their son is using the casino money to go to Frostburg. And there are choices out there to help us. And any ideas, we just need to bring jobs back into the area, the infrastructure. And Frostburg College just added a new building that a lot of my fellows worked in. Thank you very much. And hopefully there'll be another one soon.
Programs, jobs, you said earlier. And our new building that just opened, 127,000 square feet, $71 million building funded by taxpayers in the state of Maryland. But what people don't also know is that there were 500,000 work hours on that building, and 70% of the people that worked on that building were from Allegany and Garrett counties. Kept them working for 3 years.
They got to work in their own backyard. They were very fortunate, and they were waiting for the next building.
So we're waiting.
And we're waiting for Allegany High School. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the testimony. So I'm going to go ahead with some questions now. Well, first of all, what I'd like to do is just ask a few questions here, and then I'd like to be able to go out and also give anyone in the audience a chance to say something or raise a question. We're not going to be quite ready yet for a couple of minutes, so I want to go to the basic student aid programs, if I can. What is very clear is that the Pell Grant program needs to be reformed. Would you agree to that? And let me just reiterate it. First of all, let's go to income eligibility. I'd like to get a couple of consensus things. So for income eligibility for a Pell Grant, you said $24,000, is that right? So where's our student? Who's got one of my microphones? Would you give her the microphone, please? Joanna. The student aid lady? Could you tell us your name and... I'll repeat it because it's obviously not working. So if you are applying for a Pell Grant, let's not worry about the technology. Let's keep the meeting going, okay? So when you say $24,000, what does that mean? Per family, what?
That's for the family, and it's for the maximum Pell Grant. So the maximum Pell Grant would be $5,730 for this year. And then as the income goes up, from there, the Pell Grant goes down.
So what happens, just as we listen to our Chamber of Commerce and our union folks, their incomes are over $24,000. I think it's, and when we heard the income from the family farm. So $24,000 is really pretty Spartan. So one, we need income eligibility because we squeeze out the middle class. We're not talking about raising it to $124,000. We're talking about raising it, doctors, you've recommended to what we had at 32 or 35. Nicole, did you want to say something?
And that is just, I guess I'll ask a question about that. When you think about it and think about our households that
Yes.
are making $50,000, not even quite $50,000, and that's not even middle class when you're thinking about that's the household income for a whole family. So why hasn't the Pell Grant threshold, instead of being lowered, why hasn't it been adjusted upward
I'll
with
come back to it because
inflation?
I think it's a false sense of controlling our debt. Okay, I think there are other ways to control our debt than sticking it to students in middle-class families. That's what that was all about, but I'm going to come back. So I think we're universally agreed that the eligibility for Pell Grants really doesn't work for families. It doesn't reward work, and it doesn't reward savings. So if a family's pulling together, two people working, and they go over that limit because you're doing self-help, you get nailed. So, pardon me, that's not an artful public policy, Brookings Institute, write the memo word, but that's pretty much it. Well, I think this is why middle-class families feel so frustrated, and Nicole, you talked about this disengagement. So one would be income eligibility, is that right? Now, let's go to the other part of it, where you talked about flexibility and the all year long. I think we're all clear that for the student's perspective and your perspective, am I right, as administrators, you'd love to use your buildings all year long and be able to, even if you qualify for a Pell Grant, to really be able to come because it helps you move along. Is that correct? That's correct. So restore the all year long Pell Grant. Now, what about this flexibility issue?
The flexibility issue with...
You said you needed more flexibility.
Okay, I got to find my notes.
Well, let me go to this, because I think what we're hearing now, we hear about the non-traditional students. What I'm hearing, and when I look at, listen to our students here, first of all, I think all students are exceptional. Okay, so we'll start with that. But the second thing is just about every student is non-traditional. If you listen to every single one of those stories and the path that it has brought them to the schoolhouse door, to the college door, each one is different and unique. So we need as much latitude as you can to legitimately qualify them for help so they can get going. Am I correct?
That's right.
In that. And then the other is what all it covers. So Pell Grants are key to this. I'm going to come back to business in a minute. Now let's go to what we need to help you reduce your cost. Tuition costs are staggering, exactly as you said, Doctor. Then you add textbooks. Textbooks are what, $100 a pop? And
That's
then
on
I
the low
hear,
end.
what?
That's on the low end.
Well, I took the easy courses. I mean, but
Textbooks
one
are typically $500 to $600 or more a semester.
total or per book?
Total.
Total. But I understand in certain technical fields, for the young men and women who want to go into nursing, some of the fields we've talked about in healthcare, X-ray technology, et cetera. Now we're talking about fields in cybersecurity. I mean, this is a great area. You're out of the blast zone. It's a wonderful way to talk. Yeah, you know, Garrett County's out of the blast zone. But these textbooks are very pricey, and they change, right? I mean, if you read Jane Austen, she's going to sound the same today as when I read Jane Austen back in the day. But if you're taking, that's not to minimize the English courses, but if some courses change more rapidly, and isn't that particularly in the STEM fields?
I think if you go from year to year and addition to addition of textbook, you'll find very little change in the actual content, but publishers will continue to ask faculty to have a new edition so that they can raise the price on the new edition. It is quite a racket. The students take the used textbooks, they sell them back, they get almost nothing for them. And then the textbook industry sells them in a secondary market, so they actually make money twice on the same textbook. It's quite a racket, and it's, you know, you talk about the online accessibility of textbooks today, which is wonderful. I took a course recently where the textbook was totally online. You could highlight, the content was up to date to the day, to the minute. It was constantly feeding you new content. It had live video feeds embedded in the book itself. It was great, but not every student has a computer, especially in rural areas like this.
Or have access
That's
to
right.
broadband.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Ms. Yoder, do you want to comment?
In terms of affordability?
Well, in terms of your students here, they're not going to be Pell Grant students. Correct. So is the Workforce Investment Act, which is supposed to help with job training, really of help in this area?
It is to a degree, but as I stated earlier, the criteria are so stringent to be eligible for those programs.
So what's wrong? What was the criteria that is?
There's certain barriers that you have to meet, and so it really comes back to...
What would be an example of the barrier?
Barriers would be being unemployed, being a single parent, having a disability of some kind. And yes, we do have a good percentage who have that, but not all. And I can give you a great example. We have a phenomenal truck driving program. We graduate anywhere between 80 and 90 students a year. And our numbers have started to drop because the local WIA office they've even tightened the reins a little bit more on who they are willing to fund. They have to have pre-hire letters. They have to have gotten their permit prior to enrolling in the class. And so now we're seeing our numbers go down because of that criteria. It's almost $4,000. So
wow.
A student can't, it's very hard for someone who's making the kind of wages that we have in Garrett County to pay.
See, this then goes to the very fact that the very rules of government work against what many of us hope to achieve. So let's go to what you've just described with the workforce reinvestment. And some of these could also be some of the people that Jody represents, meaning they either want to change a career, upgrade their career, or whatever. The way the rules are now is that for any reason you really are already low income, it's designed to help you get out. But if you already have an income and you don't want to fall behind, you're pushed out. So if you want to change, Kelly earlier talked about her husband, lost his job. He picked the right career. He was a guy, and he wanted to go into a shortage field, nursing, shortage of guys in nursing, so he was a hot ticket, okay? So instead of giving him a hug and a grant, we pushed him into debt. And then you have men and women coming to you, because by the time they come to you, they are men and women. And they have family responsibilities. They're trying to get ahead. They're trying to get ready for what, Stu and Nicole have talked about, which Jody is hoping for, etc. So the very nature that, in other words, we have to not only think about how to boost low income. In other words, if you're not middle class, what is the ladder or stackable opportunities, I love that, to get you there. But if you are there, we don't want you to fall behind, and I think one of the moods that's being talked about here, and I don't mean mood like in a psychobabble sense, people are worried, are they going to stay middle class, or are the rules rigged against them? Isn't that kind of it? Well, I think that's very serious. And what I would welcome from you and the other, I know you belong to a statewide network, if you have like a paper or something to me on what the reforms should be, because of course we want to lift people up, but we also don't want people to feel behind, and we don't want them to feel hopeless or a malaise. We can't have people giving up. And I love this phrase of getting by or getting ahead. So Right, and we want them to get out of where they are, but also not slip behind. I think that's very helpful. Now, how's this working between the 2 years and the 4-year? This is a pretty new innovation, isn't it? Where the credits that you all take, and you take them and then they...
I think honestly that we probably, one of the things that I love about this community, it's not just the relationship that the community colleges have with the 4-year university, which also has graduate programs, but the relationships we have with K-12 in Garrett and Allegany, the relationships we have with local government through the county and in the cities. I think that there are not a lot of levels of bureaucracy. We sit down and solve problems because we have to and because we want to. And all too often, I will add that many times when there are panels brought together by the White House or the Department of Education, we often are not included.
You mean the rurals?
Yeah.
Who is the we that is not included?
The rurals, comprehensive colleges and universities. Typically, it's the usual players, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, the big guns that are asked to come into the room and talk about how to solve problems. But the majority of the students who graduate from American colleges and universities graduate from community colleges and comprehensive universities. And we are often not asked our opinion. And I applaud you for asking us our opinion.
Well, that's why I wanted to be
know.
here. And yes. I'm getting an earful, and a head full, and a briefcase full. This is great. This is just what I wanted. Yes.
I think just to add what Dr. Gibraltar said, I think that we have very strong partnerships, and I'm looking at our school superintendents and pathways. Talking about stackable, as Julie said, there's another type of stackable. If you can start with your students in your career center and then have them come on to the community college and then go on for a bachelor's degree, we can have some very affordable options for higher ed, and I think we can be very excited that we have that available in our community. But we still need your help in Washington.
Well, we have a lot. I'm going to ask, and then I really will come back here, but this goes to cost. It's the conversation we've had with the Board of Regents, with the community college presidents, certainly with our governor and our commissioners and so on. The question is how can we help? And this is, again, a nationwide problem, hold down the cost of tuition. And what are the tools that are, this is not a punitive or a finger-wagging question. This is a pinpointing. And what are available for you? In other words, do you need help from your federal government in terms of true grants, not bonding authority? The commissioners can tell me there's a limit to bonding authority. They don't need more loans either, right, guys? And what about that for your laboratories or whatever? What about the Appalachian Regional Council that helps 15 states and was designed exactly for this region and the challenges that it has? And what about our regs? Do we put so many regs on you that are really dated or even dysfunctional? Some going back, I know I've looked at them with Senator Lamar Alexander. We're working on a bipartisan effort on this. Do you have?
I think that
so where are we here? How can we help you?
There's a lot of talk right now about performance-based funding. There's a lot of talk right now about the president's accountability measures for college and universities. I will tell you that there's an enormous amount of unfunded burden that we have to deal with at our colleges and universities in terms of reporting requirements. And they're labor intensive and they take a lot of our time. And we have to prove constantly the value of the product that we're offering to young people today. And so much so that in that burden of proof, sometimes I think people forget why we're here. We're so busy trying to prove ourselves to people and the quality of the educational product that we offer that people lose sight of what higher education really is. And I think that has put an enormous burden on all of us.
Well said.
One perspective, and it's not necessarily federal, but the community colleges were initially set up that the student would pay a third, the county would pay a third, or the locality would pay a third in the state. And right now, our students are paying more than 50% of the burden in form of tuition. Our local county does a good job at meeting their share, but our state, unfortunately, is only about 19% right now, when it should be more like 33. So that's fundamentally a problem. You talk about affordability for students, that drives our tuition up when we don't get the support that we need.
I see. Well, first of all, I think what is stunning here to hear, and I'll come back when we have our open mic for the commissioners, the use of the casino money, but pardon me, funding of education should not be a crapshoot, okay? And I don't mean it as a bad joke or whatever. This is a national responsibility. You know, the education of our workforce depends on the functioning of America, whether it's going to be in the private sector, the nonprofit sector, or the government sector. You need an educated workforce. So we all need to put money into this. But let's come, though, to this cost. First of all, in terms of do you feel that that the federal government offers grants to community colleges and our excellent four-year university programs that would help you essentially lift the cost, like in terms of laboratories or others? Do you feel that, are we of any help to you?
Absolutely. We've been the recipient this past year of a Title III grant.
Tell everybody what a Title III is.
A Title III grant is strengthening institutions. Where's my grants people to get the full name of it? But basically, it's a strengthening institutions grant, and we have our proposal was to strengthen our academic advising across the college, because we know the second most important thing that happens outside of the student being in the classroom is the quality of academic advising that they get. So we were a recipient of a $1.9 million Department of Education grant, and this past week we just learned that we were a recipient of a Department of Labor grant. Maryland, as you know, got $15 million in a consortium to build our cybersecurity programs here. So, yes.
Well, the federal grant programs have been extremely helpful and generous, and through NSF and NIH, and I mean, they really do provide. I mean, we have a sustainable greenhouse project at Frostburg that was from a federal grant. We have a sustainable energy research facility that was from a federal grant, where students are being educated in a state-of-the-industry facility in this area, and they're terrific, and
But it takes a lot of time, doesn't it?
Well, a lot of time, and as you know, grants run out, and we end up having to let people go, and federal earmarks are not what they used to be. They're not.
There are no federal earmarks.
I know, and that's a good thing in many ways, but it also has constrained our ability to do some really good work.
Well, what about the Appalachian Regional Council?
I think that you probably will hear universally from everybody in this room that the Appalachian Regional Commission is the lifeblood of our university, of our colleges and universities. We don't even really have to contact them and ask them for support. They call us and say, we have an idea we'd like to sit down and talk with you about, and we'd like you to apply for this grant. It is an example of government helping college and universities in a way that I've never seen before.
And I'm going to now turn to our business and labor and then out into the audience. I love the Appalachian Regional Council. And what do I like? It is the Appalachian Regional Council. You're not competing with New England. You're not competing with California with 32 million people. It is focused in 15 states, maybe not contiguous to Maryland, but in many ways contiguous to each other, that face in many ways the same challenges of both terrain, the decline in manufacturing, coal, saying goodbye to coal and hello to something else, like our friends in West Virginia, in Kentucky. The other thing that I like about it, so it really focuses on the need, like of the mountain counties. But the other, it gives the opportunity for bipartisanship. I am so darn tired of the gridlock, deadlock. When all is said and done, more gets said than gets done. Because it's, Lamar Alexander and Bob Corker of Tennessee, we're hand-to-hand on this. Instead of hand-to-hand combat, we're hand-to-hand in trying to look at it, working with Senator Alexander, a former governor, a former university president, a former secretary of education. You put that in the room and we're all working together, we can get something done. We need to have more hands across the aisle. So this is what I like about the operation. It gives us the opportunity to put together the coalition. So we're really going to work on that. I want to turn, though, to business and labor, and then we're going to go into the audience. I know our time is running on. So in your first of all, thank you for your excellent viewpoint. But in terms of your views about the jobs in the future, you see them as primarily in service and a different kind of manufacturing. When I was first elected was when we were saying goodbye to Kelly Springfield. And then we've watched so many of our major manufacturers either close or go overseas. So do you see them in a new kind of manufacturing?
From what we're seeing in Garrett County, it is specialty manufacturing, and that is certainly a growth industry. We're also seeing job creation occurring in healthcare. Obviously, healthcare is...
No, we've talked about healthcare. I want to talk about manufacturing.
It's in Garrett County, we do see this, and different types of... again, it's specialty manufacturing. It's not light manufacturing. It is advanced manufacturing, but it's very specialized. And you have to have training. Even if it's a certificate, and Garrett College has done a great job over at the CTTC, and we work closely with them, and so does Economic Development. But you have to have training. Most of those jobs, people are not going to be able to just walk in unskilled, uninformed, uneducated. They're going to need some type of training, and they do need the soft skills.
I don't mean to cut you off, but people are starting to leave, so I'm going to...
I don't have much more to say than Nicole did. I mean, situations like Hunter Douglas fabrication, American Woodmark, I mean, the advanced light manufacturing, CNC machining, those sort of specialties that aren't environmentally unfriendly and take up less space are definitely on the horizon.
Jody, did you want to comment?
No, not this moment.
Okay, thank you. Well, I've got a million questions, but I think I got it. I want to take now about 15 minutes and be able to go into the audience. First of all, I want to thank the commissioners for being here and the role that they've played in really education and economic development and really energy and new ideas. I mean, really hearing about how they have tried to support you. So nice to say hello to you.
Senator Edwards has joined us also, our state senator.
Where is our state senator? Senator. Way back. I couldn't see him there. The light is on his head. I didn't know if that was a halo or what. But also to our chamber, I want to say something to our chamber. I think we've got a new dynamic that's so positive among our chamber. I'd like to salute the Maryland chamber. You've hired Brian Poffenberger, who succeeded Kathy Sullivan, who was fantastic. But Brian was a Hagerstown chamber guy, and we're now put together a competitive council. I'm going to meet with him. We're going to have the delegation meet with him to talk about being competitive, and not only competitive in the corridor, but be competitive statewide. Statewide goal, jobs, jobs, jobs. Regional strategies. Eastern Shore, different than Western Maryland, but not pitted against each other. And then to look at how we can be competitive in both the service industry and then in the manufacturing area, and then really get behind infrastructure. So I'm very excited about that. I know Delaney's got a bill on infrastructure. He's been trying to pass for 2 years. That's an excellent idea, but that's where we are, so thank you. I know educators are here, citizens, so let me throw it open. Let's throw it open with the commissioners who've been here and been quite patient. If you wanted to have anything you wanted to say, any recommendation you wanted to give, then we'll go out in the audience and go back and forth, okay?
Thank you, Senator.
That microphone is not on, gang.
I've got a big mouth anyway.
Well, good, that makes both of us. Let me stand up.
It is on, Senator.
I was very fortunate to be the county commissioner that was chosen to work with ACM and Frostburg with the creation of our Opportunity Scholarship. And I think the way we did this is something that the state and the federal government should look at. We basically told these two institutions that we had a certain pot of money, and our only demands for them to get this money was, number one, it had to be strictly for Allegany County residents. We wanted the scholarship available to traditional students, non-traditional students, including those who are looking for workforce training, and we even included high school students that are looking to take part in pre-college classes. Other than that, we said, the money's yours, you decide how it can best be used.
Well, that is very impressive.
From what I hear, I think that's one of the problems that the ACM
That's
and
exactly
Frostburg
right.
has with the money they receive from the state. Yes, they need the money, but it comes with so many strings, they can't use it the way they see best. In the same way with the federal money, I think there should be a certain amount of money allocated to each of these institutions with a report that says, this is what we have done with your money. Other than that, allow these institutions to decide what is best for their students and for their institutions.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Anybody else? Okay, but I wanted to make sure the commissioners had anything to say, and then I hope if other educators and all want to jump in as well. Okay, so we'll go on that side. Laurie, go ahead. Could I have your first name and what brings you here?
My name is Chuck Yao. I'm a human services student here. Obviously, I'm not a traditional student. We haven't had this pleasure since Connolly's crab cakes. Hi, Jody. All these programs really helped me. If it weren't for them, I would not be here. The problem that I see in the long run are the student loans. The interest rates on the student loans and the fact that they just go on forever and ever and ever, and the more you try to get ahead, the further you sink in. I know your colleague, Elizabeth Warren, is working on this, and I'm sure you are too. Where do you think this is going, and what can we do about it?
Well, I've worked very closely with Senator Warren on this. First of all, we worked to cap the interest rates because it's one thing to loan money, it's another thing to gouge students. So we capped the interest rates. Then the second thing is our legislation that Dr. Gibralter referred to was to enable students to refinance their debt. So you listen to Kelly, our first kickoff speaker this morning. Her husband took out one set of loans under one set of circumstances, and I don't know their personal situation, but just as a hypothetical, you should be able to you should be able to refinance. I truly believe if you can refinance your yacht, you should be able to refinance your student loans in this country. So we're going to come back and make another fight of that. We need 2 more votes. I'll tell you where they are, and you can help me get them. So anybody in the center or over here?
Senator, I just wanted to thank you for being here today, Jim Rowley, Garrett County Commissioner, and thank you for this opportunity to look at college affordability. We have been one of the first programs in the nation to put in place a K-14 education opportunity program and fund our community college. But as education at the K-12 level becomes harder and harder to fund, it makes it harder and harder to fund those programs when we look at the college programs as well. So one thing that's going to be important is for Maryland to step up to the plate and make sure they're funding K-12 education in an adequate way, that we can kick in and continue our part on K-12, but also then help them with college affordability. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner. That was excellent. And again, the commissioners have been great. Remember, I was up here for roundtables on the Elementary Secondary Education Act, including because the rural counties were so important. We got to do that. And I believe one of the ways we can help local government without no new program, no new regs, is to fund IDEA, the special education program. The federal government was supposed to fund 40% of that. We only fund less than 11% of that. That would mean millions of dollars to Garrett, and to Allegany, and really to all of our states. So that's one of my priorities. No unfunded federal mandate. If we give you the mandate, we should give you the money. Would that be a good way to go? Yes. Yes, ma'am. The lady in kind of the beautiful fuchsia sweater.
Yes. Hello, Senator. I'm Sherry Snyder, and I teach at Allegany College. I, too, am a social worker, and like you, my graduate work was covered under the Community Mental Health Act in the early 70s, and that put me into a career in mental health. And in the 80s, my graduate work was paid for in aging because of federal monies to get people working in aging. I would highly recommend that some of those programs be continued. It helps people get into the fields. As a result, when I came out of graduate school, I did not have loans. I could buy a little house in Philadelphia. Many of our faculty here that are coming in, they're coming with their own college debt. They can't buy the homes and the things to put back into the economy. So I think we're stifling our economy in many ways.
Well, that's what Dr. Gibralter said, and really, I think our chamber would talk about in our people in construction, whether it's, the heavy construction of big buildings or residential. This is a drag on the economy, and we now have about $1 trillion worth of student debt. And I'm looking about how students don't incur so much debt, but also how we can help them pay off that debt. What do you think of my idea of having some type of debt forgiveness for civic engagement?
Absolutely.
It has to be a real nonprofit,
Yes.
Really a real nonprofit, and you have to do a real service.
Outstanding. I think it supports the community while it also helps forgive debt, and it helps us be better citizens. Okay. Senator Mikulski, just one other brief point. I am a mother of 4. I myself carry, in addition to my children, about $1,000 worth of debt. I'm a single parent for my students, my kids' college education. I'm going into retirement in 3 years, and that's a huge amount of money. I think we have people in my age range who are also paying for their children's college debt.
That's an excellent point. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go over there and then come back. I'm rotating through. Okay, yeah, the gentleman here. Well, wait. Here's a microphone.
Other than capping interest and the refinancing legislation, I want to know personally, what are you going to do to decrease the tuition rates around the United States? I mean, because as it's been said numerous times today, that it is staggering how much we have to pay to attend college.
What do you think I ought to do?
I do believe there should be some sort of legislation in place that limits how much institutions should be able to charge students to go to college.
Well, I think this is why I asked our academic leaders here, what is it? And I think the way that I'm really nervous about caps, because then they have bills to pay. What I'd like to do is figure out how to help them reduce their expenses without shortchanging education. That would be federal assistance, particularly in construction for buildings, particularly in outfitting the laboratory and technology fields, and then also to look at where we so regulate them and have so many reporting or other requirements. It's essentially money going to nothing rather than being able to hold down expenses or hiring more faculty. So.
Hi, I'm Scott Hara. I work here at the college, so I have two hats. I'm in institutional research, so I'm one of the unfunded obligations. I'm also a heavily in debt grad. So I would love to see the refinancing bill go through. I would also like to see incentives for working in low-income areas regardless of profession. Just because I'm a statistician doesn't mean that role isn't needed. So I understand nursing and some of the other trades are funded for low-income areas, but college needs statisticians too, but I have to incur debt as well. But I would also like to see some of the reporting requirements go down, and that would be great.
Well, I think that's very good. I can think of several jobs, particularly in the area of education and healthcare, where you need statisticians, because statisticians lend themselves to a field called epidemiology. And right now, if we talk to the commissioners and their health commissioners, you could pinpoint where there are certain health problems for which we could intervene. That's good. So, but I'm with you, you know. The idea of being able to serve should not be limited to a very narrow field, because it's bigger than that. That's a good idea. Yes, ma'am, right here. The lady in the front row, right here in the black T-shirt with the cobwebs on it.
Yes, Senator, I kind of come on the opposite end of things at this point. I am a college graduate. I have an AA degree. I have a bachelor's degree. Very proud of that. However, my husband is sole provider at this point. I've run into health issues. It's kind of made me unable to work. I very much want to work. We have accrued our college debt. It's like almost $80,000. They are constantly demanding high costs of money out of us. They look at his total gross, as opposed to realizing there's health insurance that comes out of that. There's other things, you know, his union dues, that he's not making that total gross. My daughter now, who is 12, has
a health
challenge.
challenge.
Up a little bit.
Has a health
We've just
challenge.
recently found out her spine is deforming for whatever reason. Now we're running into more medical bills. Now it becomes a decision of, do we push off the college loans more? That's what we've already done due to medical issues. Or how do we handle that situation and settle down the constant phone calling?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your personal situation. It sounds like you've all done everything. You know, you've done everything that we said you ought to do. Play by the rules, get an education, but you've had some unforeseen circumstances. Right now, that would be Pell Grant reform and loan reform. But I would like, after this meeting is over, if we could get your name with Joyanna. Joyanna is not only very good with the microphone here, but she is my Western Maryland contact, and we would like to talk with you about your situation to see if we can help with some of these healthcare costs and give you a breather and a lifeline here. So could we just do that privately?
Yes.
But again, we want to do everything we can to help you out.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Senator, just want to remind everybody we're running short on time, so just a couple more questions.
In support of the debt forgiveness for civic duty, I transferred out here 10 years ago. I was a former Board of Education employee in Anne Arundel County, transportation, and I could not secure employment out here. My husband and I both moved out here as ministers to perform a civic duty, and we've served the community for 10 years. However, whenever my son attended the Career Center, and he excelled at the AutoCAD. We had him set up to attend Pittsburgh Institute. And whenever the general consensus of his friends who had received job placement was that they were being laid off, and the investment for these student loans compared to they were now unemployed and not able to pay their loans, he decided to take a job with Height Roofing, worked at FSU, and now he's 21 years old with a herniated disc, no education, and unable to work in that field. I myself, my husband has lost his income in this area. I started attending school, but I'm looking at now dealing with almost $14,000 in student loans just to make ends meet. And if that civic duty, the debt forgiveness for civic duty, if that were in place, that would be something that my entire family would benefit from greatly because we've all served the community.
Well, these stories are really something. I wish I could bring all 99 other senators here. Of course, I'll be talking with Senator Cardin, but just to hear this, these really show where we need to really be putting our national resources. Thank you very much for telling me this story. I'm sorry about your challenges, but I think that's those are very good recommendations. I think we're out of time, but we're not out of ideas. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think we are out of time. And I, too, want to thank you very much for coming to Western Maryland to hear all of our stories and our ideas. And I know you will go back and fight very hard to put them in place.
Well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, we're going to keep on fighting to refinance these student loans. The second is that we do need to do the Pell Grant reform. One of the things I've consistently heard in every single meeting was the need to do Pell Grant reform. By listening to the earlier forums on college affordability, I got the debt for civic engagement. I'm going to work on that. But the other is for our college presidents. We want to help you be able to reduce your expenses. And the way we want to look at that, and we welcome your ideas, is not to cap, though that sounds like a wonderful idea, but I've watched you still will have the same expenses, and then it'll come out in fees and other kinds of things. So you need to have resources to have the physical infrastructure you need here, the technological infrastructure that you need here, and you need to be able to do it without taking another loan yourselves. And then the other is to really look at the regulatory burden that has accumulated over years, which again, with Senator Lamar Alexander, I've established a federal task force of educators. Dr. Brett Kerwin, our chancellor from the University of Maryland, is on it. We hope to have a report in the next 90 days, and I will tell you we'll do it. And that brings up something with Lamar Alexander. I just want you to know, you know my politics. I've been around a while, so you know who I am. You know what my party identification is. But I tell you, I feel we got to get rid of the deadlock. We got to stop talking about next elections and start worrying about the next generation. Less worrying about our job and more worried about the job these young people have. So I pledge to you that I will work across the aisle to try to bring about the reforms necessary to empower our young people to be able to do what they do. America is a country that believes in education. And we've created the social inventions to do it. We know about our technological innovation, whether it's been in science, sending a man to the moon, or many of the other things we've done. But you know what? It's in the United States of America that we had a first free public school system. It's in the United States of America, worried about immigrants coming over 100 years ago. We were the country that invented night school, so that people could go to school. Then after World War II, with the GI Bill, all of the students were non-traditional. They had gotten rid of fascism in the world. And when they came back, they couldn't go off to a 4-year school. They weren't going to go to Harvard and do the hasty pudding club. They wanted to have a hasty job that they could get to. So we invented then the junior college. So we believe in education from the land grants and so on. So now we need to look at what we have done, reform it so it really works for students, and then get serious about passing the kinds of legislation that helps bring jobs, whether it's the infrastructure bank, whether it's tax codes that say don't send jobs overseas, bring them back here, and let's all go to work. But I just want to thank you for the wonderful ideas that you've given us. They are fantastic. And to our young people, we want to say God bless you. And I'm going to close by saying God bless America, the country we hold dear.